Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order a special meeting of the Board of Trustees of the McAllen Independent School District being held today, Monday, June 11, 2018, beginning at 12 p.m. in the boardroom. It is 12:03 p.m. Boardroom located at Central Office Administration Building, 2000 North 23rd Street in McAllen, Texas. First order of business this afternoon is a public meeting to discuss the 2018 proposed maintenance and operations tax rate. This item is being submitted by Ms. Lorena Garcia. I'll pass it to Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, and welcome to the public meeting. And in this meeting, we'll be discussing the 2018 proposed maintenance and operation tax rate. Ms. Garcia will proceed with the presentation.
Good afternoon. Today we're here to hold a public meeting on the 2018 proposed maintenance and operation tax rate. First of all, we'd like to acknowledge the Board of Trustees and Dr. Gonzalez for their support and direction during the preparation of this 18-19 budget, as well as the executive leadership team and the Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Cynthia Medrano Richards. This is our district's vision and mission that encompass all we do here. I'll first start off by sharing some information regarding the early tax rate adoption. The school district is employing the early tax rate adoption under the Texas Education Code 440.001 through .006. A school district that uses this method adopts the tax rate using the certified estimate of property values in the district, which we have done so, instead of the certified appraisal roll. The certified appraisal roll is not available until the end of June, so that is why we're using the early adoption method. Under this process, the tax rate must be adopted before the budget, and that is, again, what we are following. Today, the tax rate is being proposed to be adopted, and then on the 25th, we will come back with the adoption of the budget. If the board adopts a tax rate above the district's rollback tax rate, they must hold an election to ratify that rate. And in order to ratify that rate, the board must order the tax ratification not later than the 30th day before the election date. And then a TRE must be conducted 30 to 90 days after that adoption. The district complied with the requirement to publish a notice for this meeting. It was advertised on May 30th, 2018 in the Monitor. And then this chart provides a history of the school district's tax rate history. And of course, for 18-19, we are proposing maintenance and operations tax rate at $1.15.5. The interest and sinking shall be set at 0 pending the outcome of the tax ratification election. If the TRE is successful, then the board we are recommending that the board come back and set the interest and sinking at 0. If the TRE is not successful, then we are recommending that the board then set the interest and sinking back at 11.5 cents. And we did provide that notice, and I know it's kind of small to see here, but that information was provided in the notice as a note here in this middle section, letting the public know of those intentions. And then this number here on the side that says every penny generates approximately $712,036. That's the tax effort that each penny of tax effort generates based on our property values. And at this time, I'd like to turn it back to Mr. Vela to ask for public comments. And
Mr. President, you can make a statement you're opening the public hearing.
I don't have my statement here.
It's Dana. Do we have the binder real quick with the public comment?
I don't have my...
You can just make a comment you're now holding the public hearing.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to public comments during our special meeting. If there's anyone from the audience that would like to come forward and express an opinion or a comment.
Regarding the TRE.
Regarding the TRE tax the tax ratification election,
The tax rate.
tax rate.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Sure.
Good afternoon,
If you would
Board
come
of
to the,
Trustees.
please, to
I've never
the,
addressed you formally like
please state your name and proceed with your comment if you would,
Yes,
please.
sir.
Thank you.
Judith Flores Saldivar. First of all, I want to commend this board. I want to commend Dr. Gonzalez because I serve as Vice President of the McAllen Citizen League, and it was my privilege to be present for a very thorough and well-explained, well-illustrated explanation as to how the TRE will affect the school district's budget. As a citizen of McAllen, of course, I'm here because I'm interested in seeing that the community be as informed as possible, and I see you moving in that direction, so I congratulate you. I'm personally in favor of the TRE, as long as, again, we use the monies as was indicated, the adjustment to teacher pay, security, and whatever else the board deems necessary. And I thank you for your time and attention. Thank you.
Appreciate you, your comments, Mrs. Saldivar. Is there anyone else present that would like to address? If you'll please come to the microphone, state your name and your comments, please.
Is it on?
Yes.
Good afternoon. I too am for the TRE. I'm speaking for myself and not my executive board. I think this will provide the opportunity for you to continue to keep our younger staff who thinks they need more money, but they do need security, so that's what money is for. I'm proud of the very young ones. I've had the opportunity through representing them legally this year to talk to more than 115 of our younger teachers, and I spent a lot of time with them talking about what they wanted, what they want to see, how they perceive that they can stay in McAllen. And it was very helpful to me as a representative of the union, and I learned a lot. Many of our younger teachers didn't have both a mother and a father. And it's been my good luck to be able to talk over their problems and listen and hopefully keep them. And I think the TRE will help us with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We certainly appreciate your comments, as always, Mrs. Scow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience that would like to make a comment or? All right, this time I'd like to close the public meeting at 12:11 p.m. and move to item 2 of the special meeting, approval of the McAllen Independent School District Maintenance and Operations Tax Rate. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. The Education Code, Section 44.004, requires a meeting notice for the budget and proposed tax rate for the school districts. Prior to the notice being published, the board must decide on the public meeting date and vote on a proposed tax rate that will be published in the notice of public meetings to discuss budget and proposed tax rates. And we are requesting action on this item.
I move that the maintenance and operations M&O property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of $1.155, which is effectively a 0% increase in the tax rate. This tax rate will raise more taxes for maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate. The tax rate will effectively be raised by 0% and will raise taxes for maintenance and operations on a $100,000 home by approximately $0.
Second.
It's been moved, and I just wanted to clarify that there's item A and, sorry?
And we also need a record vote.
Yes, sir. I'd like to start by saying that this item is being discussed in two different each items. Item A is what Ms. Aliceda moved to approve and Trustee Saldivar seconded. So all those in favor of this item signify by saying.
we need a record vote?
You're right.
It's a roll call.
Roll call.
Do a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Alvarado on my left,
In favor?
Ms. Aliceda,
In favor.
Mr. Suarez,
In favor.
Mr. Saldivar?
In favor.
And I am in favor, so at this, and Mr. Farina?
Whoa, hey,
Hey.
about me over here.
Yay or nay?
Yay or nay?
In favor as well.
Looks like the motion has been moved and seconded, and the vote on the motion is at 6-0. Thank you, trustees. We'll move on to item B.
I move to approve the resolution setting the maintenance and operations tax rate of the McAllen Independent School District for the year beginning on January 1, 2018, and ending December 31, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved by trustee Aliceda and seconded by trustee Saldivar. And again, we will do a roll call vote. Again, starting with Mr. Alvarado on my left.
In favor?
In
Ms.
favor?
Mr. Suarez? Mr. Saldivar?
In favor.
Mr. Farina?
In favor.
And Mr. Vela is in favor. Again, we have a 6-0 vote on the tax rate. Thank you very much. Going on to item 4, discussion and possible action for special election. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, Mr. President. The Texas Tax Code 26.08 requires an election in order to, or at any time a district changes the tax rate. In this case, the swap from the INS to the maintenance and operation requires that the board order an election. And Dr. B has a formal proposal for consideration, and we will be requesting action on this item. Dr. B?
Yes, and good afternoon. We bring for your consideration an order for the election for the tax ratification election to be held in McAllen ISD on Saturday, September the 8th, 2018. The resolution defines the parameters for the election as per election code, the rationale for the election and the polling sites. And actually, there are 6 precincts in the city of McAllen here, and the times and the places for the election as well. The voting will span over 2 Saturdays this time, and will begin on Wednesday, August the 22nd, 2018, and run through Tuesday, September the 4th, 2018. There are 3 different blocks of times to vote, and then the first one is from 8 to 6 p.m., and that's the weekdays, which begin on a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and also the Monday and Tuesday of the following week. And that will run from 8 to 6 p.m. And then the Saturdays will have a little bit more time. It'll run from 8 to 5 p.m. on the 2 Saturdays that we have there. We will not be open on Labor Day weekend, that's September the 3rd, but we will resume on September the 4th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. the Tuesday, and that's the last day for early voting. So with us today, I also have, in this review of everything that we have, I have been in contact with our elections, county elections, and I have Ms. Yvonne Ramon here and also Mr. Michael Sosa to tell us a little bit about some of the one change that we have in how the voting can take place. So I invite Ms. Ramon over to tell us about that.
Former McAllen ISD staff member.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Ms. Ramon. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always good for me to come home. I always feel like this is home for me because I feel that what I know, I certainly did learn through McAllen ISD. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me, Dr. Barrera. As Dr. Barrera said, there is one change that I felt I needed to come and explain to you, that last year in 2017, Hidalgo County Elections applied for a pilot program that is called Countywide Voting on Election Day. And simply what that means is, just like you may go and vote at any polling location during early vote, you are also able to do the same during Election Day. So we went ahead and piloted the program in November 2017. We had such a positive and a great feedback from our community that we then asked our Commissioners Court permission to apply for permanent status, which we were granted. We went ahead and turned in all the statistics showing how, for example, at UTRGV, on Election Day, you had every student able to vote at that campus, when prior to countywide, they literally had to leave their campus and go to the precinct from which their home, of course, is represented. So this was such a great just looking at those maps and the geocoding, showing people coming from everywhere. So if, for example, I live in McAllen and I would have to drive over here on election day because I never make it out during early vote, and I didn't have to now because I'm able actually to vote right down the street at the elections annex. So our legislators went ahead and approved for all cities and schools that we run to also be able to utilize this. So during this September 8th TRE bond election that you will be having, you will have your 6 election day sites, and all voters will be able to vote at any one of those sites. Their ballot will be available at any one of those sites, no longer represented by precinct, but now represented as a whole. And I went ahead and brought Michael Sosa, my IT supervisor, in case you had some technical questions that he could help me explain. Yes, sir.
I have a question, but it's not a technical question, so you can probably stay sitting there. If we have a person who lives in McAllen but works in Edinburgh and there's an election going on there, can they still vote for the McAllen ISD in Edinburgh?
Yes, sir, they would be able to, for example, in May. And that's something that, once I explained your voting alone, I did want to explain a little bit further. This past May, we had 6 elections that we were holding, but there was one entity that did not want to join the ballot. What did that mean? That meant that if a voter was able to vote in a school district, in their city election, in an STC, and Agua, because those were 2 additional elections that were taking place, then that voter would have been able to go to any location, pull up their ballot, and all 4 elections would have been represented. But we need, in May, all entities cooperating and agreeing to this. But we had one that didn't want to, so that meant that every single election was holding their own. What did that mean? That meant that for our elderly and our disabled that received mail ballots, for example, 4 different ballots went out to them, and they had to return each individual ballot in each individual envelope. And if they didn't, then the ballot board, by law, had to reject that ballot. So it is very important that you start thinking about that, and as we start to see those that will be running elections in May and will be contracting us to run their election, that we take a look at this, because that would mean that your ballot would be anywhere in the county where another political subdivision was also running. So for example, if we had our 2 extremes, the city of Mercedes, the city of Sullivan, if they were to be running, then your ballot would be there as well. Just like their ballot would be here in the city of McAllen. It would mean every voter gets to go to one location, and they have the ease of voting on one ballot where all their elections are represented. So that's what I'm going to be taking that to our Commissioners Court to approve, because what we did see, no voter being turned away on election day, that they found themselves at the wrong precinct, but certainly we did see where now the increase of, because of the annual application for ballot by mail for our elderly and our disabled, now they automatically, once they fill out an application, they automatically get a ballot once they fill that application out. So you can see that the increase is certainly going up, and we want to make sure that every single vote is cast and correctly tabulated. So this is something that you will hear about me taking to court, but for now you're running alone. So just so that you know, not only will your voters be able to vote at your 3 early vote sites, any of them, they will also be able to do that at any election day site.
Thank you, Mr. Juan. Any other questions or comments? Trustee Alicedo?
I have questions or comments. I'm concerned with the time constraints. On the August 22nd to the 31st from 8 to 6, are we locked into 8 to 6, or can we do 7 to 7 if we pay a little bit more? What are our options?
We received this from you. You get to choose your hours, you get to choose your days, and we are here contracted to run as you would have us run. So that would be a discussion for your board and your school board, and of course, alongside Dr. Barrera, because I believe he was following the 2015 election day cycle.
That's the times are the traditional times that we normally maintain, as well as the sites, and we didn't vary from any of those, but we are certainly open to change those if we
I mean, for me, I just thought the Tuesday, the September 4th was a little bit, I didn't think anyone would go. I mean, early voting's already stopped for 3 days, and you come back for 1 day, and then you stop again, and then the actual election. I thought that day might be kind of a wasted day, and I was wondering if we could float those hours into the other days and go 7 to 7. I know school's going to be back and forth, and all of our teachers and all of our working staff, they're all, if you can go at 7 a.m., that's a lot better than trying to go after work. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but.
Trustee Esparza.
I know that was a concern last time too, especially, I think it was during the city and school board elections. The city had theirs 7 to 7, ours was 8 to 6. People were showing up and they couldn't vote for both, because the difference in times, or they were getting there after 6. And I know it's not your all's fault.
Right.
They were getting there after 6 and the city was still open, but they couldn't vote for the school. It was.
I believe there were 2 days
Yeah.
where the hours did not close at the same
Right.
time.
And I'm sorry, I feel like Ms. Ali said that, 8 o'clock, people are at work already, and 6 o'clock, they're getting out and to rush over there, and it's hard to go during your lunch hour. Just seems, 7 to 7 would be better.
Just know that whatever this board decides, we will work with you, and of course, anything that you decide, we will do.
I've been voting since I was 18 years old, and it was always 7 to 7, and I was a little amazed that, when I was running for school board, it was different times, on different days, as a matter of fact. And so Trustee Esparza brings an excellent point that, here we had an election, and there were different times on 2 days, and it didn't coincide with another election taking place. I think it makes perfect sense that we traditionally follow what most voters are accustomed to, which is a 7 to 7 process.
If I may, Mr. Crane, is that a board item for us down the road?
Well, I think if you can just instruct Dr. Brewer and administration to make arrangements for 7 to 7, that's all you need to do.
Well, I think we pretty much all agree, so, is that something?
Yeah, absolutely. The administration will make the recommendation for 7 to 7. That makes perfect sense to us. We will make the correction and bring that.
Mr. Vela, I do have one question for just.
Trustee Alvarado.
Since you're here, I'm curious. I read something in one of the workshops, and I don't recall, so correct, and please excuse me if I don't explain it, but our high school registers, are they allowed to sign up our high school students to vote?
Principals are automatic volunteer deputy registrars. So principals are able to, in their high schools, register all 18-year-olds or those that are 17 and 10 months that will be 18 on election day. This is automatic, and they do receive information from the Secretary of State's office timely so that they are able to do this in their high schools.
Dr. Gonzalez, I'm sorry, Dr. Gonzalez. Is that something where, you probably didn't hear it, are we doing this already where the high school registers are registering our students?
That's something that we've done in the past.
In the past, we are working, there is a idea around trying to put that together, and as far as early, getting them registered, but also getting them registered and having a booth at the football games in the fall.
Okay, because I know it's not going to affect the TRE, but for moving forward, it would be great to have those students registered.
Certainly.
Yeah, I thought we were still working with one of the voter registration groups to continuously do that.
The Active
Exactly.
Center of Texas. We work with them, and we try to reach every high school. Sometimes what happens, of course, as you well know, is during a general election where there are so many other polling locations, then workers is always an issue. Having enough workers to be able to man these polling locations. What I'd love to be able to do one day is set up our students to man their own polling locations. When we participate with student council or king and queen,
Once they're 18, they'll be certified.
the students themselves help man them, and they do a great job. So I would like to see a program like that where we get, all the representation from the different activities and the different groups from your high schools to man these locations, and that would be certainly something that we could work toward.
Thank you.
Definitely is community service, and many of these students need to have community service, so it makes a lot of sense.
I believe each one of the high schools has a teacher designated as a person to register. I think it's the government or social studies history. It's designated to register the students. I don't know if they go out and recruit them or if they rely on the students to come in and register on their own, but
They usually work through their government and economics classes. But yes, a principal is automatically a volunteer deputy registrar and can do this on each campus.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the action.
I had a
to
question
call.
or comment first before, if I may. For Ms. Ramon. Ms. Ramon, two items that come to mind. A minute ago, you said that they come in and designate their precinct when they come in to vote. Not all precincts line up with our school district boundaries. Is there a school district qualifier or identifier when someone comes in?
Oh, yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. What we have now with our new machines is called an access code. So when you've gone to vote, now that extra step that you have, when you check in, you are identified as per your precinct. And then at that point, when you go and retrieve that access code, your ballot is already identified. And when you get to the machine, your particular precinct-based, although we have precincts at every location like early vote, it is now identified right at check-in and at the access control room. So yes, it is by precinct, and your school district jurisdictional lines are represented through those precincts.
So if there's someone in a precinct that's within the school district boundaries, but part of that precinct may be outside of the school, those people would not be qualified to vote?
If they live within your school district,
that's-
yes, they will
okay.
be able to vote.
All
If
right.
they live within McAllen ISD jurisdictional lines, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Did you have a,
On the machines, is it the new machine that you put the paper in and it scans it upside and everyone can read it? Okay, I appreciate you keeping the old system. Thank you very much.
and I had another question for you. What is the latest date we can give you the times to hold our election?
September the 8th. Michael, by when do you need to code this election? The sooner we code your election, the sooner you get your contract, the sooner you get your sample ballot. Of course, all this is a ripple effect, right? But the latest date,
We need to eliminate the week before, so the first week of August?
Okay, that's my question, and I need to ask Mr. Crane a question. It is not specifically tied into the changing of the times for the election is not in this
Well,
particular issue. Is it appropriate for us to amend this particular motion so that it can include the times for the dates that
Mike,
we will be holding the election?
The first answer is it sufficient notice to the public? And I believe it is because of the way it's worded.
Okay.
So now, that would be a backup document as far as time. So I believe you can amend the motion to instruct administration and the elections department, when they put it together, to have the times you desire.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Mr. President,
Yes,
if
sir,
I may.
Mr. Saldívar.
Thank you, and I intend to do two motions, just so to make sure that everyone is comfortable with what they're voting on. First is the Board of Trustees approve the action to call a special election to ratify the maintenance and operation tax rate for 2018.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by trustee Saldívar and seconded by trustee Alvarado. Any discussion on the motion?
My discussion is only in the Exhibit B. So Exhibit B is the one that we're going to be amending, so shouldn't it be approving this and amending Exhibit B?
I'm going to, just like in the other action, I'm going to call for a second motion that actually clarifies what you started in the conversation. And the reason for that, so the public's clear that we're first calling for the election. And the second is to clarify that we would like the election to be 7 to 7 on the dates that are listed. And that's an appropriate action to do, is two separate motions. Mr.
Okay,
Crane?
because the document we have has Exhibit A and Exhibit B attached.
No, that's the next item.
That's the next item.
Okay.
Yeah, for number 4, we're not getting to that yet, right?
Correct.
That's 5.
Any further questions or discussion on the motion at the hand? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Mr. President, second motion, I move that the Board of Trustees instruct the administration to enter an agreement with the County Election Commission that the elections for the TRE be for the date stated, but for the times to be amended to begin at 7 and then at 7 o'clock for each day of voting.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
7, 8.
Yeah, it's 7 to 7 for all days.
Is there a second to Mr. Trustee Saldívar's motion?
Yes, there is. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. to hold the elections, times to be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the designated days of the election. Any discussion or questions on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor of this item signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Ramon, thank you very much for your presence, for your explanations, and it's always good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 5. I'll turn it over to Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. Ms. Garcia will provide a report on a new Region 1 consortium for region-wide fiber optic network implementation initiatives, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Garcia.
Thank you. Mr. Ali Koladous from Region 1, he is the Chief Information Officer for the region. He visited our district and shared some information regarding a new consortium for high-speed regional fiber optic network. We're bringing this forward to you today as a report because there is a cooperative agreement that proposes to leverage the cooperative buying power of the region as well as E-rate funding to set up this new consortium. The commitment is a minimum of 4 years, and it's there's some cancellation penalties. So that's why it's important that we share this information with the board first, and then determine if this is something that we should pursue further. There is a deadline for the commitment, and that is in July. So I've asked Mr. Koladous and his staff to please be here tonight, this afternoon, to present on what the benefits are on the consortium. In terms of savings, if you compare what we're paying now to what the cost of the services would be through the consortium, there would be a substantial savings to the district. However, like as I mentioned before, the only item that I would strongly consider would be whether we want to commit for the first 4 years. As far as the history with the district, I'm not aware of a time where we've had to cancel. Typically, these contracts, the district contracts for a period of 5 years, and we've carried out the contracts to the term of 5 years. So it's not very unusual for this type of service to be that length, but I will now turn it over to Mr. Koladous so that he can share his presentation with the board.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming this afternoon. The microphone is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are y'all doing?
Great, thank you.
Good.
I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to come present to the board, to the superintendent, Ms. Garcia, also having us come by and talk to you about this. Is the clicker here? That's a question. Okay. So what we'd like to talk to you about today is this Orion Regional Fiber Optic Network Consortium that Ms. Garcia gave you kind of an overview on. I wanted to give you, before we got into the nitty-gritty, the technical details, a little bit of a history and reason why we wanted to adopt this initiative. We are looking to improve the educational reach of our classrooms and to bring services to our districts that aren't currently available, and do this through technology. While we are trying to implement a technology project, at its core it's not technology, it's technical in nature. What we're really trying to do is bring things to the reach of our districts that they're currently not able to take advantage of, either due to cost, lack of availability, or proximity. And the kinds of things that I'm talking about are being talked about in every school district: video conferencing, information security, sharing of resources, and so forth. So what we'd like to do is bring these things to all the districts at affordable prices and really kind of take that cost variable out of the equation. We're going to talk more about what quality and what level of service are we going to bring, rather than how much is it going to cost us. Can we move forward? So when we were looking at how we could build an initiative to meet kind of these goals, we looked around the state and we saw that a lot of our sister service centers had adopted initiatives to build out their own high-speed regional fiber optic networks. And that's a whole lot of big words to basically say they're laying fast cables to connect each other together from one end of their region to the other. Why would they want to do that? What are the benefits? Well, the obvious benefits are connectivity. We can share data back and forth. We can RFP as a group and get better pricing on our internet plans. The real benefit here is what we can build on top of having this kind of foundational mechanism in place. We can share our expertise and bring information security to the entire region. we can have a calculus teacher who's in District X provide a class to District Y where they might be able to hire that teacher. We might be able to develop e-learning courses and make them available to the entire region for much lower than what our content providers are charging us now. So really, we're looking at bundling together our collective buying power and doing some of these things that are just out of reach for individual entities by doing it together. Now, we came to a realization that if regions upstate are doing it, Region 20, Region 11, Region 18, and so forth, there's no reason why we can't do it down here. Our children deserve no less than they do. We don't have any less expertise at our schools. We just haven't taken that step. And it's gone from one of these initiatives that's pie in the sky, difficult to do, very complex, to seeing they're actually getting it done, and they're ahead of us. And some of them are already using it. They're taking advantage of it. So we sat down and we started planning, and we saw that we can actually build out this high-speed network covering Laredo to Brownsville and connect everybody in between. And that goes for big districts like McAllen and Edinburgh, all the way down to our smaller districts like LaSalle and Lyford. Everybody will have the same equity and advantage to take advantage of these services, regardless of the size of your geographical location. This is one of the big benefits that we want to bring up. Now, we're going to talk a lot about cost when we come to this project, but I'd really like you to keep in mind cost is just one of those positive byproducts of this project. What we're really trying to do is build on our collective power to bring better and more services to our districts, educational services. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the implementation planning, some of our cost projections, and some of the comprehensive services that we're looking at doing. And please, I'd love this to be a discussion. If at any point you'd like clarification, feel free to stop me and ask. One of the first questions that we've gotten, which I think Ms. Garcia touched on, what do we get if we join up out of the box? What are the benefits? Well, first and foremost, you get high-speed internet, 10 gigabits of high-speed internet for probably about a fraction of what you're paying now. When we did a cost study, we were able to save most school districts between 300% and 500% on their internet. The equipment that will be used to provide that service to your school is financed over a period of 4 years, hence the 4-year commitment. You will own that equipment after that 4-year period is up. Then you have 6 optional 1-year renewals to get to a 10-year point.
Can I stop you there?
Yes, sir.
In the IT world, 4 years of a piece of equipment doesn't last you a year, so
Yep.
I'm sure you're going to tell us how you get to upgrade it for free, right?
Yep,
Perfect.
absolutely.
I knew you were getting to that.
And I'm glad you asked that question. That's a very perceptive question. The equipment that we're buying is not something that, let's say, I at Region 1 or you at McAllen would buy from your current vendor. We're actually buying carrier class equipment that Verizon or AT&T purchased to put their networks together. So we're not buying equipment that gets replaced in 4 or 5 years. We're buying equipment that gets replaced in 15 or 20 years. These are $1 million boxes that are expected to last with very high throughput for a very long time because of the size and the scope of the investment. So while we do have a cost allocation built in to do a refresh at the 10-year point, we're more than confident we'll get more than 10 years of life out of this point, based on the talks we've had with our vendors. So high-speed internet, we do have E-rate consulting and project management built into this project because, of course, we need to have expertise during the implementation and then after. Those 2 services are available to all consortium members, regardless of size. And then the real beauty of this is direct connectivity from district to district. This does not encroach upon your in-district planning. We're not talking about selling internet. We're not talking about coming in and retrofitting your buildings with fiber optic cable. That all stays in-district with your staff. What we're talking about is from the left and right side of your districts, connecting to the others, so that we can share resources. And basically, we're going to have our own large private fiber optic network. Private is the key, all right? Why is that? Lots of us use Google, lots of us use Amazon, lots of us use Pearson for assessment. One of the benefits of having this private network and going with some of the providers that we have is they're willing to give us direct connections to these providers, meaning we have basically a cable from your school to that provider, meaning you no longer have to go out to the internet to access their services and come back in. This is a huge benefit that major networks take advantage of that we also will now be able to take advantage of at a fraction of what you're paying now for internet service. And then, of course, because of our size, 37 entities who have jumped into this, we have huge collective buying power. Internet today is basically a race to zero in terms of pricing, just like long distance minutes are on your cell phone now. It used to be 65 cents a minute to call anywhere, and now it's just free and included in your plan. Internet in the next few years will be the same. What really is going to be charged for is the network, and that's what we want to take ownership of. We want to have our own network and stop renting it from somebody else. We want to define and dictate how our network runs and what we pay to put on it. And that's what I think we can accomplish with this Orion project and benefit all of our districts. I already talked about some of the benefits that we're going to see right out of the box. There's a couple of other things that once we're all connected become available, like disaster recovery, business continuity. I don't know how many of y'all are concerned about your data or your operations coming to a halt if we get hit by a hurricane, because we are in Hurricane Alley. Well, if you ever, let's say, request a quote from a vendor and say, how much would it cost me to put my data up in the cloud? And they'll give you a very reasonable price. And then the day that hurricane rolls through and you say, I need to pull that data back down, they will charge you 20 times as much with a smile on their face, knowing that you have no alternative. Well, guess what? Laredo is outside of Hurricane Alley. If we have a regional fiber optic network and Region 20 in San Antonio has a network and Dallas-Fort Worth has a network and we all connect up, now we have a statewide network. We can dump our data in Dallas. They're not going to get hit by a hurricane. They're not going to charge us a huge fee to pull our data back down because they're also districts. They're service providers. They have the same hassles that we do. They have the same needs that we do. They've come to this conclusion a little bit ahead of us, and rather than reinvent the wheel, we want to take advantage of the benefits they're reaping today for their administrators, for their students, for their classrooms.
I have a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
You said in some other districts you've been able to save money. Have you looked at what we're paying and if you're able, will you be able to save us money?
Absolutely. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, your pre-E-rate payment is about $10,000 a month. We're able to get you your 10 gigabits of internet, which I think is a little bit more than you're getting right now, the equipment and connectivity to the fiber network, post-E-rate for $1,500 a month.
And we're paying $2,400 a month post E-rate.
So then,
About $900.
$900 a month.
okay.
For more bandwidth and connection to everybody and all these other services that we spoke about.
What are we using right now?
We're at the 10. We're at the 10 as well.
So we're getting the same
Yes.
for just a little bit cheaper.
With the option to grow if you want. If you want 20 or 30, we can handle that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The other question I have is, who would manage the network?
So we have three enterprise-level providers: NetSync, that's providing the equipment; SmartCom Internet, a local company providing the internet services; and Foremost Communications providing the network build-out. So Region 1 has what's called a service-level agreement to those providers. In case there's a network outage, an equipment failure or something, we come and communicate with them. Region 1 in turn will have an SLA with all the school districts so that you have one phone number and one email address with one name to contact, and then we'll take care of quarterbacking all those requests. We have monitoring software that comes along with the equipment that we're buying that gives us an eye into the health of the network, not your traffic, but we can see what's up and what's down. And then we also receive alerts over email and text about what's working and what's not. We have a 4 to 8 hour turnaround time depending on the severity of the outage or the equipment replacement that needs to be done with most of our providers.
And so you mentioned 3 other districts or regions that are, there's like 4 different regions you said, right, that are already, have you visited their operations and see what issues have they had with this?
We've talked to them at length, and we've actually invited the Chief Technology Officer from Region 11, Mr. Rory Peacock. We have a technical meeting for all of your technology directors across the districts tomorrow at Region 1. That individual, along with our service provider engineers, will be there to talk about the build-out, the implementation. He will basically share with us what their pitfalls were, how they got over those, where they're at now, and what we can do to avoid falling into those same traps. So basically, cheating and getting at where they are with less effort. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. President, question.
Trustee Saldivar.
Thank you. Tying it in back to the initial part of your presentation, which is talks about academics and
Yes.
having access, and this is something we've been having discussions with the board for the 9 years I've been here. Even within our own district, being able to broadcast or have a teacher in one campus teaching students in another. Can you share with us briefly what is Region 1 doing already in anticipation of linking that up? And more importantly, what are these other districts already doing that we can then see how well or how effective it is? Because, again, this has been going on for some time, and I've yet to see the needle move at all to tie in technology with actual remote education, high-quality teachers to any district in our area especially.
I'm actually, by background, a faculty member. I started teaching at STC, and I taught online networking and so forth, and I moved into the operations side. So that's actually a subject that I'm very familiar with. My graduate work was on distance education, the effectiveness of technology in distance education. So A comment on your comment, I don't think that any child, any district by geographic proximity or budget should be prevented from taking advantage of services that are available. Unfortunately, because we're all islands unto ourselves, we all take a myriad of approaches in implementing e-learning, distance learning, content curriculum, and so forth. You cannot take a book and place it into Blackboard and call it an online course.
Right.
You need to have people that are trained, that actually know what they're doing. At Region 1, we've built out an e-learning team that actually has curriculum specialists. So they come from the instructional side. They're not technology people. They're instructional people that are technically savvy. These individuals have gone through rigorous training to be able to develop e-learning courses, which means they have rubrics, they have assessment that makes sense, they have asynchronous discussion with the students. They are developing these courses right now internally for Region 1 and as a service to some of our districts that have requested it. This is the core team that we'd like to take that expertise and provide train the trainer to anybody who's interested. A lot of districts right now are already developing their own content and curriculum. They just have no way of sharing it. Putting it out on the internet is slow. You have hiccups. You watch a YouTube video on this screen, sometimes that doesn't work.
Right.
With this kind of a network as a foundational piece, we can get to that point where it's like you're in the class. You know, I remember when I was a kid, Cisco used to show the video phone commercials. This is back in the late 80s of the technology that's going to come, and it looked great, like you're watching TV. That is the level of quality we can have nowadays with the equipment that we have and this kind of connectivity behind us. So the approach Region 1 is taking is starting on the instructional side, developing a solid foundation, and then augmenting, scaffolding that with the technology that we'd like to implement region-wide.
Is it possible as we continue to have, because this is for presentation today, that element put in, because I really think it has to be a package deal. Possible 2 MRUs, I understand all that, but I mean, we gotta definitely see, because all too often I've seen these presentations, not as good as this, I'll mind you, but it never connects it to the next level, or we're left to ourselves to try to figure it out. And we gotta get way past that. We're 2 decades into the 21st century competing against the world. And I totally agree with you. We have things here at McAllen ISD that surrounding districts could benefit, and they have things we can benefit. But more importantly, there's a plethora of opportunities out there with the various regions that all of us can benefit. But I need to see that it directly ties to a true academic program lined up with this technology as we bring it together as a package deal, Dr. Gonzalez, really.
To your point, I completely agree with you. I think there should be a drive and a focus on developing these non-technology services utilizing this technology. I will preface that by saying Region 1 is a consortium member. We are the lead fiscal agents. We provide the back and forth and the paperwork and so forth. We would be happy to take the lead on this, but it really will take a consortium-based effort, everybody agreeing to work together. And while we can exert that influence, we can bring people together, we can start those conversations, if the wherewithal with the districts is not there to really move ahead and take advantage of this thing that we want to take advantage of, I don't see it being successful with just Region 1 applying that pressure. So I would be more than happy and honored to lead that front, that foray into developing a regional information, an educational program. But I will say again, it will have to be a collective effort on all consortium members, all districts.
I hear you. At this point, what I'm seeing is a cost benefit, a cost savings benefit, which is great, and it's something we definitely need to look at. But we really also need to be, at the forefront. And McAllen ISD has been at the forefront in Region 1. If not in the region, in the state, then we ought to be at that point in collaboration to figure out how do we start tying, if nothing else, within our own district from campus to campus. Thank you.
Just a very basic question, and it's kind of related to Sam. One of the things that our students have maybe a little unique to other districts right now, access to Chromebooks, for instruction. And one of the issues is when they leave the school or what have you, they don't have access to Wi-Fi. Not all our students, right? Is there anything, and then I apologize, I mean, it's a great presentation, and I know I'm maybe reaching a little here, but I'm just asking, is it down the road any options for Wi-Fi hotspots so our students can connect when they go home, or is that any?
So here is, to answer your question, and it's a question we received often, and we have to be careful on how we answer it given the vested interests in terms of metropolitan internet services and network infrastructure and so forth. So we are providing this network, internet services and so forth, to E-rate eligible entities, school districts and libraries. All right. We have invited city and counties that have buildings along those thoroughfares to pay out of their own pocket to connect if they'd like to. They're going to be paying a premium, much more than a district would pay, but they have the option of connecting to this network now. There's nothing to stop a library or a city or county government or a private entity from taking advantage of the internet and putting, let's say, a very strong Wi-Fi receiver out there for community service. The McAllen Public Library, for instance. If right now their Wi-Fi density allows them to support 1,000 people and they want to make an investment and support 10,000 people and then invite children on the weekends to come and do their homework on the lawn, that's their prerogative. Region 1 on the instructional side right now is working with several different foundations that are looking to bring Wi-Fi services to the community, to the actual home, not to the school. Now that Wi-Fi will basically follow you from the school to the home, to your point, and allow that child to continue their educational journey back and forth. So we can't directly associate it with this project just due to the nature of the E-rate funding.
I understand.
But definitely there are pathways to accomplish that, yes,
Okay.
in the future.
Trustee Aliceda.
How many groups do you need to get in the consortium before you actually break ground and start construction? Because this isn't something we can actually utilize until like 2020, 2021.
That is correct. The network build-out will take about a year, about 15 months, and then we'll go through a process of doing equipment installation, testing, and so forth. So we're looking about July 2020 when it's on and you're using it. So we've got about a year and a half. Now, we have 11 entities that have provided us signed agreements. We have 4 that are pending board approval, similar to this process, and then we have the rest that are in various stages of either cabinet review or technical discussion review, or they're with the legal department. No offense to any lawyers here, but billable hours seem to be a big thing in projects like this, so some of those documents get caught up. So we're working with them, our legal counsel is working with them to try to facilitate that getting through. We would like to have everybody, because to me it's a no-brainer. We're getting this network built out for $0. $0. E-rate and the Texas State Matching Fund is paying for everything for the trenching of the ground and laying of the cable. All we pay for is equipment and internet. In order for us to get this off the ground, it's not really a how many join up, it's how big do we want this network to span. If Laredo ISD joins up, which fortunately they have, then that enables us to run a line from Edinburgh to Laredo, and anybody in between can benefit. If someone at one of the far ends does not join up, the smaller districts in between, we have to come back and say we either have to spend an exorbitant amount of money to bring one line out to you, or we just can't bring it out to you, which is a shame to me, considering the cost savings and all the benefits that are there. So ideally, everybody would join up, but really we can make this network as big or as small as that we want, because we'll buy less or more equipment depending on how many people participate.
But don't you have to get the municipalities, like the city of McAllen, we have fiber optics laying north-south. Don't you have to work with municipalities as well and get them, I mean, because what happens if a school district says, yes, I'm in, and then the municipality says, no, you're not going to break up our roadways, you're not going to, we have easements here, you're not going to lay your lanes next to us.
So, to answer your question, the provider that we went with foremost has a good deal of fiber in the ground already that we'll be taking advantage of, and they'll be laying not an equivalent amount, a little bit less fiber to connect to the different areas that we want in a ring-based fashion, and we'll be going through based on the drawings in areas that we don't anticipate today having any issues with zoning or municipalities or anything like that. That is not to say that 6, 8 months, 10 months into the game there may be an issue with city X or Y, but those are at this point unforeseen. I feel rather confident that we don't have any issues based on what our awarded service providers are telling us. And these service providers, I didn't include it in the beginning, have been awarded by a competitive bid. So we did RFP for everybody. District personnel were involved in the selection. We did not just go and find vendors to buy things from. This was a completely transparent, open process. I think it's important to put that out there. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
kind of?
no, it did. So we don't start paying on this until it actually is up and running in
Exactly.
2020. This
Yes.
isn't something that we start tomorrow in the hopes that it's going to come to
We are
fruition.
trying to plan as far ahead in advance as we can, because this is, while I'm trying to make it seem like an educational initiative and it's hunky-dory and happy, it is a rather complex project in scope, and we have a lot of people working on it, dedicated staff working on it, in addition to our service providers. So we do need some time to get it rolling. Yes,
I
ma'am.
have 2 questions real quick. So you will utilize whatever infrastructure is already in the ground,
Some of what's already in the ground? Yes, sir.
and then you'll either add to it to be sure you reach all the locations in the school district, is that correct? And then from that point, is it our responsibility or Region 1's responsibility to get it inside the building?
So we will bring it to what's called your demarcation point, which
Okay.
is like where your internet comes to now. From that point forward into your school, your campuses, that will be the district's responsibility.
Okay, thank you. And then earlier you mentioned about the going into the cloud for backups and for storing of data. Just explain to us a little bit about the security involved with us being moved around from different places in the cloud. Thank you.
So if you want to think about the network, I call it a big private network, and one of the first questions I got from the gentleman at United ISD was, well, if we're all connected, is everyone going to see my traffic? Can they see my emails? Can they see the information I'm sending back? Can they see my payroll records? I said, well, no. Just like today in your school, if your network is set up properly, from one computer you can't necessarily see the traffic on another computer, we just take that idea and we scale it up to the size of the network. So between districts, just like between campuses, there are logical rules in place with the equipment that will prevent anybody who should not be privy to your traffic to not be privy to that traffic. Now, if you have an agreement with a district and say you want to have an opening between your two networks to share whatever resource, that is completely up to you in that district. You will have control of some of the configuration of that equipment. As long as we are doing it in a secure way, the consortium has no issue with you providing that transparency with your partners. I hope that we get to the point where we're all sharing services in a smart way. But from the get-go, we'll be connected, but we'll have our moats around ourselves until we decide to let others in. And that's very important. I want to introduce two of our team members, and to your point, Mr. James Mendoza is our IT administrator. He's been the head man on this project for the past 9 months since I came on board at Region 1. Mr. Daniel Ramirez is our newly onboarded information security officer. I felt very strongly when I started, and I don't want to say I won a couple of rounds. I convinced Dr. Gonzalez that we really needed this function at the ESC because it's really out of reach for some school districts, and it's a very critical function because student data is pristine and it's ripe and it's very high dollar because they have no established credit and they can be used for years and years and years before anybody realizes it. Your payroll records, the same thing. So we need to take a consistent approach, and we brought this gentleman on to help us standardize and make that available to everybody so that we're all protected, we're all secure.
Just to follow up, the sharing of data, there's a menu we can pick, library to library, science lab to science lab, that kind of thing. Thank you. And then the other, you talked about the security that would be required of each individual district. Do you have a standardized or a standard that we would follow in achieving that security?
I do, sir.
Level?
When we started this conversation with the vendor that we awarded NetSync Technologies, they're going to be providing us the equipment. They also have a cybersecurity arm, and they have incredibly smart people who make me feel really dumb when I sit in the room and talk to them. They have multiple certifications and so forth. It's just fun to watch them talk. But these individuals, by virtue of us having a network scope of this size, this implementation, have offered to do upfront assessments of every single school district for free. Because they're going to be helping us with the equipment, because everybody's going to be riding on the same network, they figure they can come in and at least tell us what the issues are, and then more likely than not, many of the districts are going to say, help us come in and fix it because it's just outside of our reach. So yes, sir, we are taking that approach to standardize.
And because they standardize, is there any assumption of liability by them for data breaches?
So there would be an assumption of liability if the district went into an agreement to have them remediate any issues that were discovered. If they come in and do an initial discovery and provide you a report and say, this is what we found, what would you like to do? If you opt not to move forward and remediate, then the liability would remain with the district. So if there is some sort of a contract between the two entities, I would say yes.
So there's an analysis that could start taking place pretty rapidly, right?
Exactly. And Ms. Garcia requested McAllen be second after Region 1, so you guys are next in line. Yes, sir.
Good point, Ms. Garcia. Okay, I have no other questions. Trustee Esparza.
To Mr. Vela's point, he asked, the lines would come to our drop point or enter point here at the district. What kind of cost are we looking at from there? Are we going to use our existing lines? Are we going to have to run all new cable everywhere?
If you are
from campus
using,
to campus and so forth.
If you're currently using fiber optic cable between campuses, which many districts are, or if you're using Cat 6 cabling, which can handle that bandwidth, you shouldn't have an issue. You may opt in the next 5, 10, 20 years to upgrade, as we all should, look at upgrading our infrastructure, but as long as you have fiber optic connectivity now, which E-Rate has paid for many districts, you should have no issue bringing that line in and connecting. If you have 10 gig internet now, then that means you'll be able to take 10 gig internet from what Orion provides, just cheaper.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else have comments or questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Trustee Farina.
Thank you, sir. Right now, the savings are $900 per month. What happens in 2 years if your rates go up and we no longer see those $900 per month savings?
So, curious question, your rates actually cannot go up, number one, because in 4 years, your equipment will be paid off and your price drops by about a third. And number two, just between us girls, we are able to RFP at any point in time during the implementation to see if we can find better pricing on internet equipment and the network. So if in 3 years we decide as a consortium, it's time to go back out for bid, and rather than 40 cents a meg, we're getting 15 cents a meg, well, guess what? Now everybody's price drops to that. And eventually everybody's price is gonna drop to pennies and it goes go away. So I don't foresee, unless we somehow buck the entire market and our prices go up rather than down, I don't see that happening. Prices have traditionally for technology gone down. Yes, sir.
Why is it always the girls that think of those things, right?
We're smarter.
I think that's been proven.
That is correct. Just in case my mom's watching.
Any other questions or comments? It's a great presentation. Thank you very much. It looks like something that would be beneficial to.
For your information on future slides, there are pricing models and a timeline. I won't take any more of your time, but here it kind of lays out those details. If you have any questions, we're always available to come back, discuss.
I do have a question on what's the next steps.
Oh, okay.
Well, the next steps, we've already sent the interlocal agreement to Mr. Crane's office, and he has reviewed it. And like I said, that's why I wanted to share it with y'all as a report so you can understand the special conditions of it. And then I can bring it back on the 25th board meeting
That's what I was looking
that
for.
we have for approval, because Region 1 is under a deadline to get this started.
So we're looking at a vote, Mr. President, on the 25th?
Yes.
We're looking at a vote on the 25th, is what she was
Ms.
saying.
Garcia will put it on the agenda for this. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Board, thank you very much.
Thank you guys for the presentation. Appreciate
I
it.
hope you're able to join us on this initiative.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen, and Trustee Aliceda. Moving on to item number 5, it's a report regarding the no, I'm sorry, we did that one. Item number 6, approval of request for offers. 2018, I'll pass it over to Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. The district solicited offers for the McAllen Veterans Memorial Stadium scoreboard sponsorship and advertising. We will be requesting action on this item, but before that, I would like to turn the floor over to Norma Zamora-Guerra so that she can give us some information and answer any questions you may have.
Well, for this agenda item, we're bringing Shepherd Walton King and the College of Healthcare Professions. Those are the two contracts we're bringing. And I just wanted to explain that it's $2,000 rather than $4,000 because in the case of these two contracts, we worked out an agreement with the boosters. Yeah, as you know, when we started working on game day ads and those sorts of things, we wanted to work in tandem with the boosters. We did not want to go in there and just basically take over. They've been doing game day ads so much longer than we have. And so in the case of the premiers, we offered if they wanted to sell some, they would keep 50% and half would come to the district. So in both cases, they're $2,000 each.
Thank you, Mrs. Guerra. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, I have a
Trustee
question.
Saldivar.
Thank you. When we started this venture, it was at 4,000. So how does it work different at 2,000? And what do the boosters come out with this?
Well, the boosters are going out, they're basically our sales force, so they're basically closer to the market in that they have most of the vendors that are supporting, the sponsors that are supporting because they're parents. They're connected to the school district in some way. So in the case of if you're talking about the premiers, the 4,000?
The price is the same, just to clarify, the price is the same, but 2,000 of it is going to the person who sold it. So now the booster clubs are able to raise money by selling ads for us.
Right.
So the
That's
amount.
So it's the same thing, it's the same thing.
All right, okay, as long as it's the same thing, because I was getting
No, it's the same thing.
misunderstanding that it was, and then thank you for clarifying. As long as it's the same thing, the boosters
Yes.
are being taken care of, we're able to get the funds we need to pay that thing off, I'm
Correct.
good, thank you.
So just to clarify, because I think it's a good point, so it's encouragement for a booster club, and before in the previous arrangement, they would keep all the money, so now they're sharing that with us.
Right.
They'll pay the scoreboard, which benefits all of us.
And the reason it makes sense to them is because, of course, our production crew,
Gotcha.
they're the ones that are putting the commercials together.
That makes sense.
You know, everything that's
Okay.
required.
we're good.
So for
Thank you.
$2,000 an ad, we're adding a sales force that we didn't have before.
Exactly.
Good point.
Best way to say it.
All right, any further questions or discussion on the item? If not,
So moved.
Second.
it's been moved by trustee Alvarado and seconded by trustee Suarez. All those in favor of the item signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign.
I think Tony said aye.
I said aye.
Good job, Tony.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, it's the approval of request for offers 2018-058. Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes, sir. The district solicited offers for the field naming rights for the McAllen Veterans Memorial Stadium. We will be requesting action on this item, but before that, I'll turn the floor over to Norma so she can clarify and answer any questions.
Yes, we received, we opened up for bids to accept, to take bids for naming rights, and we received a bid. We opened it at 10 this morning at the purchasing office, and we had included in the proposal that the company could also submit a marketing plan for the marketing team to review. So members of my staff, led by Juan, and we went to the purchasing office, and we met together with Ale Gonzalez, and we basically negotiated based on their plan. And so what we're proposing here, that it be approved based on review, legal review.
Pending legal review.
Right, pending.
Who is it? Or are we allowed to say that?
Yes, well, am I? Yes.
It's public record now.
Yes, it's, Dairy Queen submitted a bid, and they basically agreed to all our financial requirements, and the marketing bid that they submitted, we are, well, he's
Can
going to
you
do
elaborate
the
on
final
the
review.
what they submitted? It might be different than what was actually,
Well, first of all, we have already collected enough to make this year's payment.
Okay.
For, it's due July 31st is the payment, when the payment is due. So we have it already to make this year's payment. But with the agreement of this one, we are already almost 100,000 into the next payment. So
I guess, Norma, if you can help me, because in the package, it spells out what they get in return for.
Oh.
So what is it different that they submitted that's not on that list?
the marketing plan is what's different, and basically they're agreeing, they would like to bring in a marketing team that they would pay for, a group of 8 to 10 people to actually be at the games and amping up the crowd. So it's basically what we were trying to do with one person. Remember, we had a young lady that was helping us try to amp up the crowd, and we were throwing T-shirts. So they're basically saying they would pay for basically going out there and giving out marketing material that is branding both the school district and their company. And there's several things that they're talking about, a valley-wide marketing plan. They're talking about doing things. I know that we're all familiar with what they did last year with the blizzard. So basically, that amped up. Is that what you were talking about? Yes, and a lot of things where they're talking about social media marketing, a lot more social media marketing valley-wide, really wanting to do a lot more with specifically with the 3 games where our teams are playing each other. So we're really excited with it.
My last question, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I jumped in, I apologize. Lona, as far as what was the contract for the 5, when we first started this, 900, what?
I believe it was 900,000 for the scoreboard, and we have a lease payment of 206,250, and it's due at the beginning of August.
Okay.
And thus far, as far as the commitments for this year, including what is in fund balance, we will have enough without counting this payment.
Okay. So with this payment, though, then how much?
That's going to give us a fund balance of about approximately $64,000 for next year's payment. And then if you just take into account the 5-year commitment contracts, not even the little premier $4,000 ads, if you just take into account those, which is your anchor sponsors and the 5-year commitment from Linebarger, we would, if you add that plus the field naming, then we will be $15,000 over with what we need for the subsequent year payment. So just with that, and then on top of that, of course, we anticipate getting additional premier sponsors.
So we're on track to pay it off in the 5 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, remember, before we started this, you had allocated $300,000 for a new scoreboard. Was that correct? So we're not using any of that money?
We're not using any district money for the lease
Perfect.
payment, and we're not planning on doing that either
Okay.
in the future.
I'm sorry.
Thank you,
We're
Trustee
certainly
Alvarado, for
on
bringing
track.
that forward.
I would like to add that there are two items that I think are especially important that they're offering here. They want to do an anti-bullying partnership with the district, and they're going to be featuring the district in that. And also a partnership, they're looking at an internship program for business culinary students for
Great.
the school
Awesome.
district.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Guerra Zamora, for your presentation, and congratulations. I know.
Well, I want to thank my marketing team, the district's marketing team, a lot of people working on this, and really we're Juan leading that. And of course, Julie's been keeping the books on it, and then Jake, of course. So it's been we're celebrating right after this meeting.
Congratulations, team. That's awesome.
With the blizzard?
So I just one comment, Norma, just add if I can, Mr. President. I know neighboring school district also was out doing sponsorships, and the comment that was made to me that it's harder than there is not a lot of interest. So the fact that you stuck with it and now we're ahead of payments on it, is tremendous. So I just want to echo that it's not easy. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Did you want to make someone to make the motion?
I think that we have a comment from Mr. Crane before I ask for a vote or a motion.
As Norma Zamora said, this RFO opened at 10 o'clock this morning. And there are a few items, I believe, in the marketing plan that need further discussion, so we can approve this subject to both administrative and legal review.
So any motion made on this item should include
Administrative
pending.
and legal review.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Trustee Saldivar, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, sir, but Mr. Crane may have already covered it, but from our conversation, the two main items that I am aware of, and there may be others, has to do with liability insurance for the mascot to be on our field, which is fair, because anytime anybody comes onto our fields or any of our property that's an outside vendor, we got to make sure that they're bonded or insured, and so that's one aspect, as I understand. Is that correct?
Yes, and for the record, we did bring, actually, it was Ms. Gonzalez that brought that up during the meeting, the telephone call, marketing meeting on the marketing plan, and the company agreed that they would take care of that,
Absolutely.
and they said that was not a problem.
Right, and again, in all fair, and again, thank you very much for the, Dairy Queen for stepping up and helping out the community. We really, really appreciate it, but there are some legal clarifications that, because it just got opened this morning, maybe not gotten to legal yet for review, and that's why we are where we are. So let's not be discouraged. But the second aspect, too, is the field itself. We cannot alter the field with anything other than the district's emblems and identification, and I think that was the other aspect that needs to be
Yes, they
clarified.
did request that their logo be placed on the field in some way, and we did say that was probably going to be problematic, but we offered some alternatives, and they were open to that.
And an alternative that you may want to share to the board, so there's just some misunderstanding?
Yes, well, one of the alternatives actually that Jake brought up is, they were talking about, obviously not at a game, but they wanted to maybe do a drone shot that would show their logo on the field. And so Jake said, well, they could print basically like a mat, like a rug, put it up there and do that. And then we did talk about there is the possibility of, those triangular foam things that you can put with signage, and so we talked about that. So they were open to to both options.
It's my
But they could
understanding.
also, I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
But they're also, as they use a drone or any camera of any kind, they can always impose, as they do on any national
Yes,
sport,
a
where it's not
graphic.
actually on the field, it's just being imposed in the image that we're seeing. So they could do that as well, as long as they don't alter the field in any way.
And I already reached out to Paul about that, so we're going to be meeting this afternoon to discuss
Yeah.
what those options might be.
That was my only comment, because UIL kind of restricts the field, what you can put on the field, so as long as Paula was,
Well, just so you know, we were never really talking on the field, we were talking past the sideline, where,
that
you
makes
know,
sense.
the white bar, which is not really
yeah.
part of the UIL requirements of a field.
Okay.
Yes.
Sounds good, thank you.
Suarez.
I'd like to make a comment, and I'll go ahead and provide a motion, but I think that just from previous experience, I think time is everything. There are things that are being held, ticket printing, et cetera, that needs to be done. I think it's crucial that our legal team and our administration get together as soon as possible and get this approved. We're thankful that a local vendor that's willing to give back to the community stepped up to the plate, and I would hate to discourage them by taking a long time. That's happened in the past. I don't want it to happen again. I think it's imperative that we give our legal team every piece of information they need to move forward. And I ask that Mr. Vela, being the board president and superintendent, that you keep a close eye on this and make sure it's done as soon as possible. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion to approve pending legal approval
And administrative.
and administrative.
Second.
It's been moved
Just a
by,
clarification. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
it's been moved by trustee Suarez and seconded by trustee Saldivar. I'm going to ask for comments or questions, and Mr. Alvarado, you have the floor.
Is Dairy Queen is not one of our sponsors at all right now?
No.
Right, so, okay, great.
Mr. Suarez, to your point, we'll have it done by 3 o'clock this afternoon.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Right, Mr. Crane?
I can do that.
Okay.
If I get the cooperation.
We will get it done, I promise you that. So having said that, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I want to say something else, but I'll say hi.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
Good job, Tony.
Thank you. Congratulations to everybody.
Thank you.
Dairy Queen.
Thank you, Norma.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, the last and final item, it's the report regarding the 2018 market appraisal of Old Thigpen. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. Dr. Barrera will provide a report on the recent land appraisal completed for the Old Thigpen Elementary. The appraisal is the first of 3 that include Old Austin and Old Galveston campuses. Dr. B?
Yes, sir, and on June the 5th, we contracted with Professional Appraisal Services of McAllen to provide us with an appraisal on for a report regarding the Old Thigpen property, and that's located at 520 South 23rd Street. The scope of the appraisal project included a detailed analysis of the property identification, inspection, and also the highest and best use analysis and evaluation of the project. I show you here the first slide. This is I guess the parameters, the scope that you see here. It does not include the old gym and the cafeteria there. If you look to the left of that big blue arrow, you can see that there's a turnaround there, and that's New Thigpen to the left of that. And so the area in question here, the area that was recently appraised, is that area that's outlined in blue for you there. Moving down just a little bit, the total legal description is 2.96 acres of tract of land on the northeast corner, 5 acres of a lot, 156 in La Lomita subdivision. This was done on June the 5th, and the intended use, and you can see the values here in the sale history. Of course, McAllen ISD is the sole owner of that. And so the current listing is appraisal date here is the next slide that I show you. It's zoned for R1 single-family residential. This type of value is a fair market value. It's been declared here is as is, and it's appraised at $775,000. This is to just let you know, we did this about 10 years ago. That's up somewhat what it was from the previous appraisal. We bring you this for information only. We have 2 more pending, as Dr. Gonzalez mentioned. So I just received word that we have the other two are in too, so we'll be coming to you with a later date with a report as well on those two.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Trustee Saldívar. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, appreciate it, thank you. Why R1 single family? I mean, we're talking about the frontage, right? Not the property right behind it. We're talking about the frontage part off 23rd Street.
Correct.
Where the building is, the school. Why isn't that commercial? Everything around it is commercial.
And that's how it's brought to us here. We can look into that. If you look at the frontage part of that, where the parking lot is as you drive by,
Yeah.
and then the back side of that includes the school building. If
Right.
you go back to you follow the little line back on there, it separates between the two buildings, are the cafeteria and the old gym there.
Yeah.
But that's how it's rated for us here. We can sure look into that.
Is that the case for all our schools, that they're rated as a R1 residential site versus?
You know, that's a very good question, and I can find out.
I'm sorry.
Find out the answer.
All right, thank you. I yield.
Trustee Saldívar. Trustee Esparza.
Dr. Barrera, on the paperwork that was, or the slides I saw, it had another one, that I guess it was for the appraised value. It had something about $1 million for the land, 800,000 for the improvements of the building. Was I looking? I didn't see that here, though.
This one here, tax ID, the improvements at $669,000, the total of $1.8 million.
Right, what is that
And the
information?
tax rate, then the land there. That's the item as is presented. I do know in the final end of this, let me bring you down to show you, this one's reconciled values at $775,000.
I saw that, but I don't know why the difference, though, is what I'm asking.
Okay.
One says 1.8 million, then you're saying 775,000.
Exactly.
I don't understand.
I do know that the previous appraisal was like 720 million.
Can you find out what that is telling us here, what that information is
I sure will.
to represent?
It was not 720 million. You mean 720,000?
1,000.
Okay.
Corrected, yes.
Because I was kind of confused, because I saw that, it said 1.8.
That'd be nice.
And then at the bottom, it said 775, so I was like, how did they come
Very
up with
well.
that?
I'll look into that and get back to you.
Any more questions or discussions on the item? Trustee Aliceda.
I do. I thought in our workshop, we had talked about getting the appraisal and then having the appraisal person do, just because it's zoned R1 doesn't mean that we can't go out and have it go to the city and change the zoning. But that doesn't change the value of the property. That appraiser could have said, okay, based on these 3 properties that have sold in this area, this is the square footage we could get based on, like $10 a square foot or $5 a square foot, and then we know it's 128,938 square feet, and we could figure out the value of it on commercial. That's what I thought that we had tasked you to do, is to get that kind of appraisal. So the appraisal that came out in 2008 was 710,000. The appraisal that came out right now, 2018, is only 775,000. It doesn't also address if there's any contamination or anything like that in the soil too, and that's what we had discussion on as well. Because I think we're very serious. We want to put this as surplus property, right? We need to declare it as surplus property, and we want to put it for sale. We can't put it for sale if we don't understand the value of the commercial aspect of it, and we don't know what we're getting per square footage unless we have that appraisal person that did the appraisal do the like properties in that area and give us what the value is per square footage. So I would like immediately to know, and I'm sure that appraiser can do it, it's just a matter of logging onto the system. They zap the properties in that area that have sold. They can tell you instantaneously what the square footage is. If it's $2.50, it's probably what it is, and then we divide it out. But we need that information. Do we need that information to declare it a surplus and put it for sale, or can we do that this evening, right now?
Well, it's not on the agenda today to declare it surplus.
We are?
No, it's not on the agenda to declare it surplus.
It's a report.
So can we, since we're discussing it, can we make a motion to declare it a surplus?
It's not on the agenda to do that.
But we can certainly add that to the next.
You can add it to the next meeting.
So I'm requesting that the property on Fur, the Austin building, the 3 properties that have been vacated, the Head Start, the Galveston, the Austin, and this. I'd like the appraisals to have square footage commercial value. I think that's very, very important so that we can also declare it surplus. And I'd like to be able to declare it surplus so that we can put it up for sale so we can get it off our books immediately.
Mr.
Trustee Saldivar.
No.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Trustee Alicena. From a legal standpoint, wouldn't we have to go back to the city and get it declared in a different, other than R1 residential? Or even, what is it that we're allowed to do with excess property?
Well,
Or surplus?
typically, just to put it as excess property and sell it, you don't have to change how it's rated, whether it's residential, commercial, whatever. The buyer typically, if they're going to buy it for commercial property during the feasibility period of their contract, they're going to go to the city and see if they can get it changed to like a commercial, light industrial, or however they want to use it. So that's really on the buyer to decide how they want to use the property. And then like I said, during the feasibility period of the contract, one of the conditions of that contract is going to be that the buyer can get it changed at the city to fit the clarification that they want to use the property for.
But it just seems to me that if it's, and maybe that's just the way the acquisition or disposition of property in any case, whether it's a school district or otherwise, is you have it zoned for one, and you know that the area has changed, and it has in this particular case. And it was very residential when it was built, and now it's at least the face streets, properties on to 23rd on both sides is all commercial. That you would want to get a better price because of what it's really going to be used for. But you're saying it wouldn't matter from the sale from the school district in this case.
Right. You can go ahead and put it on the market, and then what you're going to do is you're going to have different buyers looking at the property. For example, there's 2 or 3 different zonings of commercial. There's your regular commercial, then there's a light industrial, et cetera, et cetera.
Manufacturing.
So whoever wants to buy the property is going to have as a condition of the contract that they can go in and get it zoned for whatever their intended use of the property is.
Now, for purpose of what we're trying to do, and I concur, I mean, we got to get the most per square footage. Again, within the scope of what we are allowed to do to sell the property as a governmental entity to the community as surplus, looking at it from a commercial use, are we allowed to price it that way? Because in the end of the day, that's the lowest price we can take for it. So we want to make sure that is at the highest point.
Well,
is what we're trying to get to.
Right, and so you've got to sell it for at least appraised value. And what the appraisal has done now is giving you the floor of what you can sell the property for. But there could be buyers out there that have another intended use of the property, and if you can get in a bidding war with 2 or more buyers, then obviously the price goes up, is what the final purchase price will be.
Yeah,
Wouldn't we, pardon me if I may,
Yeah.
wouldn't we sell it via a closed seal bid?
Well, you have various ways you can sell it.
Yeah, but to get the most out of you'd have to sell it with seal bid. And you take offers on it. and
Right,
that
you
would
take
be-
offers, and then also how, is there interest out there in the public
Right.
to acquire the property?
And the buyer, based on what they want to use the land for, would be offering an appropriate amount of money to be sure that they get the land.
Correct.
yeah. Last time we were about, I want to say we were like $6,000 difference, if memory serves me right. I mean, we were that close, and it just didn't work out. So while I definitely want to get the most, we all do. There's only so much the market was willing to bear, at least last time. I mean, we weren't getting close to what, and that was less value than it is today. So, but I do think, I like the approach to looking at square footage and comparable to see what it might be worth.
The current comps that were listed on the appraisal have it at $6 a square foot based on the latest appraisal and sales of different properties. And the zoning of that particular tract of land previously or currently is listed as single-family resident because it's probably been like that forever. However, the recommendation is that it would be future commercial use with pending an increase for demand in additional space in that current area. And that is what the appraisal has, and it does have all the comparatives.
When we spoke in the workshop, we were very clear on, we wanted the option of selling just the front area, which is this one, but we also wanted an appraisal on the back area, because we wanted the ability to either sell one massive property, one front property, one back property. We wanted to be able to have options. This is just the appraisal on the first portion of the property. Do you have the appraisal on the second portion of the property that we asked back in the workshop?
No, ma'am, not yet.
Could we have that as soon as possible? I mean, because we want to have options, because maybe, somebody might want to come in and put some apartment housing in there, they might want to put a storefront in, they might want to sell the front, 60 feet and buy the rest of the feet. They might want to break it up in certain ways, so we need to have the value of that back area as well to decide if we want to. So that would be great too.
Will we have to replot the land if we try to sell it as separate?
Yes.
We have to re-subdivide.
So we'd have to pay for that to get
Well,
it.
that's a matter of negotiation.
Yes.
Contract.
It could be sold as an undivided tract, just with the points, just a simple survey.
Meets and
then
bounds.
whoever buys it can subdivide it according to whatever they're going to use it for, which would be our recommendation to go with the least.
But that's true if we're selling it as a large plaque. I understand that, but what Trustee Alicea is saying, we may be more interested in selling one part and holding on to the second piece, or have two different sales. In other words, X amount is for this potential commercial, and the back being more, leave it alone as residential as it is now for what we're saying here. But to do that suggestion, we would have to subplot it and then put it up for sale as two separate pieces of property. We couldn't sell it as one. I'm sorry?
You're correct.
If our request for proposal includes any or all parts of the land, then that particular situation can be dealt with in the negotiation of the sale price.
Correct. But if you just, in the other alternative, if you decide you only want to sell and market one portion of the land,
Then
you're
you'd
going to
have-
have to re-subdivide just for that one portion.
Because if we want to keep it and later on sell it for residential, has been your, I'm following your stream of conversation.
Right.
We have to already make that distinguish of two separate pieces of property in that one area, if that's what we want to do.
Well, so it is two separate pieces of property right now.
No, it's one big one.
No, the appraisal is on the first, this is the first 2.96 acres, and then we have the second piece of property.
But
So
the question is how it's legally described. the
it's legally
property.
described as the 2.96 acres. And this is a separate, the back is totally separate legal description on it. So that you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Also, we need to have the price, that's with the building. We'd like to have a price on, if we didn't have the building there, what's just the value of the land, and what would be the price of having to raise the property? It might behoove us to pay to have the building torn down and sell it as just the value of the land. And then somebody might want to come in and take the first 100 feet, do commercials, and build some apartments, and all those apartments can go into our Thigpen Elementary right behind it. But we need to have all that information. We need to have how much would it cost to raise it, how much would it cost just the land, the first portion, how much is the land, the second portion, and we already have the land with the building. This is what this appraisal is.
Yeah, this is something we've been talking about over and over again. I mean, at one point, we were kind of leaning towards raising it for that reason.
We need our
And then we got off track, and then we,
Went back.
I think we need a whole list of options, as Trustee Alicea is outlining, so we can make the best decision on how to proceed.
This was actually a refresh from the 2008. And so to move quickly, that's why it's that piece there. We will sure jump on and do that back half there, get that done, and then meet the other option, what it would cost to have it raised, and then get this the backside appraised as well, and then we'll have this one to go with it.
So when you're doing the Head Start on 2100 Fur Avenue, and you're doing the special education building on 1619 Galveston Avenue, I would appreciate the same information if it was
For comparison,
raised or if it's not raised. Just the value of the property by itself and the value of the property with the building.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions or discussions on the item? Thank you, Dr. Barrera. Appreciate your time and effort. Mr. Trevino, thank you very much. At this time, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn, but before I do that, there's been some discussion that some of us may not be here Wednesday afternoon for the meeting. How many will
Meeting on
be?
Wednesday?
Sorry?
We have a meeting on Wednesday?
Yes, sir.
5:30.
5:30.
There's a 5:30 meeting scheduled for Wednesday afternoon. How many are leaving for San Antonio's conference Wednesday afternoon?
I am afterwards.
You're leaving? You're leaving early? Mr. Farina?
Yes. Yes.
I was planning on leaving like at noon.
Well, I'm going to be in Austin. I can call you.
You'd have to have.
There's
a
only
quorum.
4 of us here.
Yeah, I'm leaving at 12 too.
He's leaving, so you're here.
I would
I'm
be here if we have a
You're here.
quorum to whatever
If you need
time.
me, I can be here.
So right now, we have three that are staying.
We require 4 in the boardroom as a quorum. The other 3 can be by video. One
But
short,
if they're driving,
but they'd have to pull over.
Because of the fact that I'll be in our governance training, I would prefer if maybe we could push back a week. That's my thought, because I wouldn't even be able to be a part of it via conference.
I appreciate that, Trustee Farina. Mrs. Garcia, can we move it back 1 week? So I think it's crucial and imperative that most of the members, or 6 or more, or most of the board be here because of the subject matter at hand. Dr. Gonzalez, you have any comment?
I would prefer that we wait to have the team all together.
What's on the agenda for that?
The internal auditors reporting to the board, both in open and
I thought that was
closed.
today.
No, there's another follow-up.
Oh, okay. There is one today for October.
No, sir, there's no meeting today.
No.
The only thing this evening is over at the recognition for the teachers, Dave and Buster.
So can we move to Monday,
On Monday, we have
the workshop?
a workshop or a grievance before the meeting.
That's right.
Wednesday. I'm sorry, I read it wrong. I thought it was today for October.
Wednesday, I can't. So let's reschedule the meeting and we'll get a time. And is that all right?
Yes, sir.
So as of now, there will be no meeting on Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by Trustee Suarez and second by Trustee Saldívar. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Good job, Tony.
Appreciate it. 7-0 at 1:38. We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.